The learning goal for this video is to help young actors prepare for and perform in a play. Now, my knowledge of acting is very limited, so I've enlisted the help of my mate Steve, who is an actor. Steve, thanks so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me, Rich.
Steve, firstly, what's the role of an actor in a play?
The role of an actor in a play, well, if it's a good play, the role of the actor is to just be part of telling the story. You find your function within the story. I guess as an actor, you find what your character's purpose is in the whole narrative and how it relates to the other characters. But essentially, it's just to be, not to steal the show, not to try and think how can this character, how cool is he, how whatever is he or whatever is she. It's just to be part of telling the story as clearly and succinctly as possible without too much faffing about. So if you can be clear and direct and help tell the story, help the audience understand the story and understand the characters, that's kind of the point, I guess.
So how do you prepare yourself for doing exactly that, for kind of almost being invisible within the actual story?
Okay, well, the thing is, and I guess if there are high school kids listening to this, whenever you get a play as a high school kid, I found there was always this emphasis on seeing how many lines you had and thinking, gosh, either I've got 0 lines, which means I'm an unimportant character, or I've got millions of lines, which means I've got a lot to remember. And that's neither of those are true. The smallest bit player in a play or a film can steal the show. And there are countless examples of that. And it's not about learning lots of lines. It's about finding in each scene or each exchange, it's about finding your character's objective. And once you find a character's objective, the lines become so simple to remember. It's almost like if you listen to a song, if you're trying to learn the lyrics of a song without the music, it's really hard. But if you know the music, then the lines, the lyrics take care of themselves. So I guess preparing for as an actor preparing for a play, you try to find the objective your character has in each scene, or if you don't want to find the objective, just find the opinion that he has or the attitude he has to the situation or whatever's being spoken about. So if it's a breakup scene, let's say your attitude is, if it's a bloke, you don't want the girl to leave. Like whatever she thinks you've done, it's not as bad as she thinks. Your attitude is that this is not as bad as she thinks. This is a relationship worth saving, and if it's a good scene, her attitude's likely going to be, this is a toxic relationship, I've got to get out of it, and hence you get the drama of a scene. But the skill of any good actor is finding a really good, doable action or a really good, believable attitude to play, I guess so. And that, it sounds easy, but sometimes they're really hard to find. But the more you read the story and understand the story, the easier it is to find that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. So as an actor, you're kind of reading the play and going, okay, in this scene, this is my objective in the particular scene. So that's what you're doing individually. What about when you get with the cast, with the group of actors and you're rehearsing? What kind of is going on there?
Well, the rehearsal period for a play, let's say, like I've done stuff that's film and television where you get 0 rehearsal, but the beauty of a play, and anyone listening to this is probably going to be rehearsing a play, is that you get to try out all your ideas, and sometimes you'll sit down and think of the attitude or think of the objectives, and we've just been speaking about, and I think this is brilliant. You take it in and it'll just be completely rubbish and it won't work. So the beauty of the rehearsal process is to try things out and to, if you think of this objective, think of 2 or 3 others.
Yep.
That you might be able to try it as well, because you don't work out what really works until you work out what really doesn't work.
Okay.
And often you get that by, it's just listening to the other person, and if they're doing this, you've got to do, all acting is a reaction. So the more clearly you see what the other person is doing, and the better you know your character, the better informed the decisions you can make on, objectives and attitudes.
Okay. So, look, I think that leads us nicely into this idea of truth. So, when actors and directors are talking about being truthful, what are they talking about?
I guess, well, everyone's seen good performances in movies where you forget you're watching a movie, or you forget you're watching a play. You think, oh, this is real life. Like, have they stopped? You're taken out of the whole audience experience. You just become a sort of a participant in whatever you're watching. and that's because the actor has delivered a really truthful performance, and the director has directed a really truthful performance in the actor. So the truth is just finding what it's reading a scene or it's reading a play and thinking what like I can see words on a page here, but how do I bring that to life in a way that is exactly as it is in real life, or how do I take the idea that the author has put in this scene and bring it to life so that an audience it's really going to resonate. So I think the importance of the reason that I mean truth in acting and truth in directing and playwriting and whatever else is such an ideal of everyone involved, because the more truthful it is, the more impact it will have, and the more the audience will walk away and think, actually learned something from that, or actually felt something from that, or it's actually, you'll talk about it in the car on the way home from the theatre because it was so real and so truthful that it resonated. And if something's not, if something's poorly done, and I've probably done lots of poorly poorly acted scenes, the audience is there going, God, that sounds crap. So that's why you want truth, because you want a pat on the back, not someone throwing a rotten tomato at you.
Well, it almost sounds like the aim of theatre is then to kind of provoke a response.
Absolutely, yeah. And no playwright sits down to write, or screenwriter sits down to write a story because they feel like it. They've got an idea that they want to explore, and it's the idea of, if you're talking about, I don't know what's on the syllabus this year, but we did. Actually, I do. It's Property of the Clan, and I did that play years ago, and that was the germ of that idea came from something horrible that happened in Stockton, and Nick Enright, the playwright, from what I know, saw that as an idea and then created a story from it. It's about a number of things that I guess we'll talk about later, but a play is based on an idea, maybe a central idea, and the ideas around that, and they're designed to get the audience to think about those things and to talk about them. And a good play, maybe provokes thought about things that people don't talk about much.
Okay, so in talking of provoking a response, what's the role of the director in achieving that?
Well, the director, as an actor, you sometimes think it's all about you and your performance, but the reason the director is captain of the ship is because they've got the whole vision in their head. So they are essentially the storyteller, and they're the artist, and they've got the paintbrush, and you are just one color of paint. Or if you're a good actor, you're a million different colors that he can call on at any point in time. But the importance of the director is he structures what the audience is going to see. So it's his job to make sure in every scene there is a certain level of conflict. In every scene, the story is moved forward in a way that the audience can understand, but in a way that's not obvious, which doesn't sort of spoon feed the audience what they're supposed to think. It should guide the audience towards what needs to be understood for the play to make sense. But good directors just know how to evoke powerful things really deftly. Like you don't notice the direction. You don't notice the acting in something that's well directed and well acted, because the director is able to sort of just guide the audience and guide the actors in a way, and guide the story in a way that has maximum impact for the audience, I guess.
Brilliant. Look, halfway through that, I was going to ask what makes for a good director, but I think you've already covered that. What makes a play visually interesting for an audience, do you think?
I guess it depends. You get some plays that have got these incredible sets, and that becomes part of the story. You hear people say that the set was the third character in the play, if it's a two-hander or something. But then there are other plays. There's a great play worth reading called Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, and the stage direction at the beginning, I think, is it's two people sitting in a bar. All you need is a bar, two bar stools, and a table, and that's enough to tell the story. But I guess you want the function of the way the play looks is every movement on stage, if it's done well, has a meaning. So if you're faffing about moving around, movement instantly becomes just something that no one's taken care of. But a well-directed play, a well-directed performance, if it's a character that's always very still, and all of a sudden, 3/4 of the way through, he starts moving a lot more, she starts moving a lot more, or things like that start to have meaning. And if it's set wise, I mean, I don't know much about this. I probably should have paid more attention in the plays I was in, but everything is designed to tell the story. Like sometimes you're sitting in an audience and you look at this and you think, oh yeah, that's just all there. But someone had to decide to put the vase there. Someone had to decide to put the table downstage or upstage. Someone had to decide to have the characters enter from stage left for the beginning of the play and then stage right. All these things, without you knowing it, sometimes play a role. So they're all things that are carefully considered, and with anything you do on stage or in front of a camera, as long as you can justify your reasons for doing it, that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, because obviously, it can be scary, obviously, for people, students who aren't actors, to kind of get up there and just do it and have a go. So what would be your kind of advice for maybe some students who are a little bit scared about maybe getting up and performing a couple of scenes?
Well, it's understandable, because I mean, there are actors that I've been lucky enough to work with who have done hundreds of things and won awards and done this and that and have built careers around it, and they still get nervous. So don't feel bad, eh? But look, if you're some front rower sitting in an English class who's going, I don't want to be a bloody actor, I got no interest in acting, it's all right. You've got to look at acting as a way. It's whether or not you're a good communicator. So you can come from any walk of life. You can be any type of person and do a good performance. The only thing, it doesn't even matter how good the performance is. The main thing is, if you're given an assignment to go up and do a scene of a play, you read it, and like we talked about before, you find your character's objective, which should be bouncing up against the other character's objectives, so you get drama. And it can be any choice you want, as long as you can justify the choice you make. There's no point getting up there and saying, I'm just going to do this because I feel like doing it. Like, that doesn't serve the story, and you look like a dill if you do that. But if you say, I'm playing it this way because I think this character has this opinion, or he comes from this walk of life, or he's just come from having an argument with this, but you can make up whatever you want. You just need to be able to justify it. So acting can become very, very simple, and the best acting is very straightforward and simply done. Like every good performance, every Academy Award winning performance you see out there is someone who's done the basic things really, really well.
Brilliant. So with that kind of idea of doing something really well, what tips do you have for actors when they're rehearsing?
Well, just don't be I can't really say this because I always get afraid of stuffing up. But no one cares if you do, and people will respect you more if you do it. If you do take a chance, and you often hear of the great actors saying, if you're gonna fail spectacularly. So I think just don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to try everything to get to the right choice. There's heard an analogy somewhere that a great performance, every great performance starts out it's a big lump of marble, and you're sort of chipping away the bits of marble that aren't the character. And the only way you do that is by having ideas. And it's not enough just to sit around a table and talk about the character. The best ideas you'll get are from just playing the scene and saying, okay, maybe instead of attacking the other character for this one, I'm gonna try humouring them, or I'm gonna try seducing them, or I'm gonna try charming them. And even if it could be a violent scene, and you watch Pulp Fiction or something, and some of the scenes in that the characters are toying with each other while they're holding a gun or something. Like, it can be playing the complete opposite to what you think initially. Can sometimes unlock things, but it's just trying everything and not being afraid to stuff up. It's quite a liberating thing.
Brilliant. So they've gone through the rehearsal. What tips do you have for our young actors once they actually get on stage, once they're performing?
Well, just blissful acceptance. You are going to be maybe nervous. You are going to start, if you're like me, you'll be standing in the wings saying your first line over and over and thinking, God, I'll stuff that up. But you just got to trust that if you've rehearsed something for 3 weeks, let's say you get the ideal, that's what a professional play will get, 3 weeks. If you've run it and run it and run it, you've made all those mistakes during rehearsal, then you've just got to trust that it's there. You can't go out and think about process and think about, I'm going to do that. You can't become mechanical. It's almost like playing sport. It's almost like, Richie and I love rugby. Let's say, you train 5 days a week. You do all these drills that are mechanical. They're to practice skills. That's what the rehearsal process is. When you run out on the field, it's almost, anything can happen. You've got to treat it almost like a boxing fight. The other fighter can throw whatever punch. You just got to be ready for it. So if you've got all that stuff, you've done all that stuff, then you've got to kind of let it go and listen and react, and all that stuff actually, without you knowing, it gets built into your muscle memory, like all the objectives and all that stuff. So you've just got to try and have fun. And if you do that, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's a great adrenaline rush, and the audience gets what they paid for. The audience doesn't go there to see you, struggling and trying to do something the way you've done it a million times before. They go to see you react as honestly as possible, and you can only do that if you kind of let go of the rehearsal.
Brilliant. Someone that Steve put me onto is a guy called David Mamet. And look, Steve's read books of his that I haven't read yet. I've read one and it was amazing, and I've watched a few videos of him being interviewed, and he's really fascinating to learn about his ideas. So look, I'd encourage any students who are really interested in acting to go out, get a hold of his books, read them. There's actually a few tips that I've taken from a book that he wrote on theatre, on stagecraft, and I'm just going to get Steve to read them in just a second. Steve, can you tell us David Mamet's 13 commandments of stagecraft?
Okay, I can. And the book to read, if you really want to read a good one, is called True and False by David Mamet. And bear in mind that I broke most of these rules, which is probably why I never got beyond co-op theatre. Okay, number 1, always gesture with your upstage hand. This one opens towards the audience. This one opens towards the audience. It's a basic thing, but you often get directors saying your hand acting, like if you're moving your hands all the time, then a hand gesture becomes nothing, especially if it's blocking your face to the audience. So that's a good one. Number 2, never stand either parallel or perpendicular to the downstage lip, as this renders the body dead and flat-footed. Rich is going to have to explain that one to me, because I was never good at geometry. No, it's just another one about opening yourself up to the audience, and like he says, it's kind of a more powerful way to present yourself, I guess. And this stuff seems like really technical, but little things like this, you see the good actors do all the time, and you think, why does that look so cool? And it's probably because they're doing these little things really well.
Well, to take it back to the rugby analogy, look, it's just doing all the simple things well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you look at the great rugby players, and they just do them well.
Yep. And it's so part of their mechanics, they don't even have to think about it.
Yes.
So that's why you drum these things in. Number 3, stand at an angle. Diagonals are powerful, so that kind of runs on nicely from point number 2. Number 4, take the scene off with you. Your scene ends not when you have finished speaking or when you leave the room, but when you're out of sight of the audience. That's perfect. Anyone that sees a crap play will see a person who's just had an argument, leaves in a huff, and then when they're still within line of sight, they're already wiping their forehead or talking to the stage director or something. It just immediately takes the audience out of the play. So that's a simple one, but a good one. Number 5, keep your eyes up. The audience does not want to gaze at your forehead, especially when your forehead's as big as mine. The eyes, being the mirror of the soul, are what the audience came to see. And, that's an awesome tip. It's so easy when you get nervous or something. Like sometimes you do look down at your hands, because it's a mechanical, it's a subconscious thing you don't even know you're doing.
Yeah, it really is.
But the brave choice is to keep your eyes up, and if they can, the best actors do it all with their eyes. Number 6, don't gesture or fidget. It's like what we've been talking about. If you do too much of any of that, gestures become meaningless. Number 7, relax. Keep your arms and hands still. Then if you make a gesture sometime in the play, perhaps the audience might pay attention. That's kind of what we're just saying. That's a great one. Number 8, pick up the space. Most actors pause before each line. Why? Nobody pays to see you think. That's awesome. Because a pause can then become a very powerful thing. Yes. Like if you're someone that is talking and talking and talking, then all of a sudden there's a pause, the audience leans forward because that pause means something. And often when you're acting, the reason you pause is because you have got something from the other actor, and you've prepared your line, bad acting, and maybe I've done this once or twice. You've said, no, I want to say this line this way, but the other actor has said something to you which has made you feel different, but you pause to forget what they've just given you and go back to what you've practiced, and that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So what was happening in the scene disappeared in that pause, and you've gone back to what you've practiced in front of the mirror.
Well, silence can be a really powerful dramatic technique.
Yep.
So if you're pausing before you speak every single time, you're losing that, aren't you?
That's right, completely. Okay, number 9, speak up. That sounds like an obvious one, but it's nothing worse than having great lines of dialogue swallowed because you're nervous or because you're not projecting your voice out. Like, the audience has got to hear everything because somewhere a writer has agonized over that line. Number 10, hit the final consonant. Most actors lacking good diction swallow their final consonants and the last one or two words in a sentence. I'm a bad actor. I don't have to tell anyone that. No, it's a good way. It's a good thing to do in real life too, and particularly when you're in America. I've spent a bit of time in America, and the Americans are just the best communicators because every time they finish a thought, they've finished their thought. And that's why they get things done, and they sound so cool. Sometimes not as cool as Aussies. Obviously not. Number 11, commit yourself to the phrase, and you commit yourself to the phrase, and you commit yourself to the play. It's a really powerful one too. You got to remember, no one just scribbled this line down. Every thought, what your character says is a thought, and somewhere a writer has agonized and has had his friends around saying, "Do you think he'd say this, or maybe you should say that?" So you've got to commit yourself to every line of dialogue and every thought that produces that line, because that's what the play's about. You can't ever throw anything away unless the stage direction is to do that. Number 12, never walk on a laugh, yours or God forbid someone else's. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
David Mamet.
No. I think this works, but rules are made to be broken sometimes too.
Look, absolutely, and that goes for writing as well. We obviously teach all these rules when it comes to writing.
Yep.
Great writers do break them.
Absolutely.
But again, you've just got to be able to justify it.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If the director says, "Why are you moving there?"
Yep.
You've got to be able to say, "Oh no." Sometimes it's because I just felt that was my impulse.
Yeah. Which
is fair enough. But often, if you think back, because you overanalyze things and you can sometimes ruin it as well. But justification is the key. And I'm sure I've watched The Office and I've seen David Brent walk on something funny.
Well, if he's done it, then
that's
absolutely.
right. If Ricky Gervais has done it, it's probably all right. Number 13, finally, never walk on another actor's lines. Well, that's a good one too. Maybe I think for stage, I think that's a 99% rule. But sometimes it's if you can justify it, like walking off when someone else is talking can be a powerful rebuttal.
Yes,
it can be a powerful dismissal. If it's something your character's making a point of doing it.
Yep.
Because if someone does that to you in real life,
yes,
it can enrage you, it can deflate you, and it can give something brilliant to the other actor. The other actor might then pursue you, and something might happen in that scene.
Yes.
But I think, as a general rule, that's a good one. It's something about the audience's attention and the audience knowing who they're listening to without spoon feeding it.
I mean, something that I always like students to do when they're looking at something like a play is to read the stage directions and look at when characters are entering and when they're exiting.
Yep.
Because often that dialogue will be telling you something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. So there's real meaning.
There's a significance to it, yeah.
The playwright's chosen to have them walking in or walking out at that moment.
Yep.
And there's a purpose behind it.
Yes, 100%.
Yep.
And the whole thing is I remember talking to a bloke I worked with who had the good fortune to work with a very, very, very famous British actor who's won, and he's probably won, I know he's won one Academy Award, he may have won more than that. But he said, how do you do it? And he said, I read, I'll get a script and I might read it 100 times. He's a prolific reader, and, I struggle to read a 120-page script once without getting a headache. But he reads and reads and reads, and by the end of it, he said, well, what are you doing? He said, because I know the story so well.
Yeah.
I know where everything fits, why everything is there, because I've just read it and read it and read it. So the whole thing, if you can find the time at school to read and reread the play, all these things just start occurring to you without you having to think too much about it.
Yes. And look, I think that goes for any of the texts that you study, not only plays, but
Yep.
look, if you want to be able to work out the meaning and why a novelist or a poet is writing a particular thing, don't expect to get it first time.
Yep.
Read it multiple times, think about it, talk about it with other people. And as Steve's kind of said, look, something I like all my students to do is go into it and try and work out what you think is the key idea.
Yep. And
then obviously that how the director is or the playwright has used techniques in there.
Yep.
He's done them for a purpose to try and achieve that idea.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the other thing to remember too is if you have a smart friend, the way I knew Richie when I was at school and I was a slow reader, I would just go and steal his notes when he was at dinner.
Yeah, so that's an option too.
So if you've got a really clever friend, just try and distract them long enough to photocopy all their notes.
Yeah. Well, look, Steve, it has been fun. Look, we've gone way over time, but
yep.
I think it's been great. Lots of valuable things. Just means I don't need to actually do any work.
Good.
I'll just put the video on in the classroom and students can watch that. But look, mate, thank you so much for coming in. But quick thing just before you go.
Yes.
Because I suspect people watching this video, who is that famous English actor?
I better not say.
Oh, you can't say.
No, he's prolific.
He's prolific. Okay. Well, look, sometimes, and playwrights will do this. They'll leave it open-ended resolution.
Try and work it out.
Yeah,
he's in his senior years, but a legend. One of my favourites.
A legend. Brilliant. Okay, Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy.